there guys, it's Joey, and this is my sort of vlog with the rune for this week. Nied. I'm going to warn everybody now, this is going to be a deep video, it's going to be a dark video, and it's going to be a personal video. There are lighter sides to this week, but the general stuff that I've had going through is quite scary and vivid and all the rest of it. So I haven't actually journaled that much because it's been a really interesting internal process for the most part. And so I'm going to read you little bits of what I did journal, but then we're just going to talk for the main part of this. So yeah. When I first wrote down about this rune, I noted in my book that whilst it was saying things such as the needs and wants, controlling your emotions, resisting cravings, hardship, coming through adversity, endurance, patience, crossing the abyss, fighting through emotional turmoil, in my book it also had a very powerful rune in Icelandic love magic, representing the primal needs and desires that drive a person to seek a lover. 2 seconds literally after I'd written that down in my journal, a picture popped up on Facebook about another Icelandic proverb, specifically one about books, I think. I guess it was meant to make sure I consider both halves of this rune, and I have a feeling it could be very unsettling for me this week, given my primal sexual self being so suppressed and a history of family abuse. I wrote down being still in order to move, staying put in order to grow, working through emotional problems, taking the time to plan and not be reckless, to respect the hardships in your past and present and not lose your head or become reckless in seeking the future. And then we had the new moon. So that was sort of rededication to Morrigan and new beginnings and things like that. Next day. The notion of infinity, the infinity symbol and the infinity of the soul maybe, and reincarnation, things like that, came up a lot at the very tail end of last week and into this week via a shared tarot spread, shared to me by a new person who I started talking to who also follows the Morrigan. So I decided to use this tarot setup. It's called the infinity setup. I don't know how well it's going. There you go. It's like the infinity symbol. So you look, it's the cards basically represent your past physical life, what you look like, location, personality, something you carried on from your last life to this life, your past life's purpose, your past life passion, your past life death, what did you learn, an unresolved issue from your past life, present life purpose, and advice from your past life to your present. So I wrote all of that down. I wonder if this rune is going to be contemplating my needs and distresses not only from the past, but from my past lives. Morrigan rules over death and rebirth, and this would make sense to draw on the lessons from death and rebirth, soul lessons, unconscious fears and desires, who I am on a soul level. It's something that has obviously been on my mind recently. The timing of that, of course, is natural as we sort of are descending now into the dark half of the year where we go inwards. So I did the tarot spread, and I feel alright talking about this briefly, what it said. It said I looked like a dreamer and contemplative in my last past life, not necessarily ones that I've been connecting to recently, but my last one. The location was all about being part of a unit, so I'm not quite sure if it's like a compound or a home or whatever. Personality was the death card. Survivor. Survived the early death of self, rebirth of self, which ties directly into what's happened to me many times over in this lifetime, and carried over the possibility of prosperity through craftsmanship, which made me giggle when I read it. The past life purpose was Queen of Pentacles, mother, hearth, home. Past life passion was being a teacher. The death, I think, was death in childbirth, because it was Knight of Pentacles. So that, when I looked at it, it just said death in childbirth to me. Life lesson from the past, the moon, problems of illusion, deception and dreaming. The unresolved issue was a dislike of solitude. Present life purpose, to regain hope, inspiration, and finding the still silent place within yourself and your own balance. And the advice from the past life to the present life was remember to take moments of respite. Take moments of respite to find your inner strength. And a few days later, because I hadn't actually journaled very much of this, I actually wrote, I haven't journaled much so far, an incredibly personal and experiencing. Oh, and I had one of my journals read this week, so that kind of put me off. Given the lack of privacy, I've been a bit put off. Last night I had a horrific nightmare. Yeah, this was terrible. The world ending, burning, looting, and basically the dream went along these lines. I was with my whole immediate family, even though obviously I have nothing to do with most of them. And we were going back to the family home where I grew up, supposedly. I don't know what we were looking for, but we were looking for something. I remember that we started off in a car going there, and I remember driving past the mayor's house that had been burnt down to the ground. I don't think there actually is a mayor's house, but that was in the dream. And there were men on motorbikes with knives and guns and clown masks burning everything down. And as we got out of the car, there was a guy holding a gun right up to his own eyeball where the mask was, saying, "Run, or you're all going to be slaughtered, little sheep," to the families that were trying to get in there to rescue their families or whatever. Then we went back to the family home, which was actually a block of flats, which is not where I grew up, so it wasn't actually my family home, and it was just graffitied all over. It wasn't actually destroyed. And then we were trying to find something in this house, and they started bombing it, and we'd all tried to get out of the room we were in. We got out of the room we were in. I was at the front trying to get down the stairs. Bomb went off underneath the stairs. I saw a guy, an Afro-Caribbean male that I didn't know, die in front of me, and the bomb went off behind, and the man who donated his sperm to create me, I'm not going to call him my father because he's not, was dead, and I didn't pay him any attention. But my sister got hit by a load of shrapnel in her chest and was bleeding, and I was screaming my head off and asking the Morrigan and Hecate to look after her. And I woke up shaking, and I have not had a dream that vivid, that horrifying in a long time. This rune is making me take stock of the past, things that are lost are gone, and parts of myself which are lost are gone. Obviously, this is going to be tying into the fact that I have almost completely lost my sensual and sexual nature, destroyed by abuse and then later partners. Yesterday there was a news story about an abused 13-year-old being called a predator by a barrister. It was shared on Facebook. The whole idea was sickening. It also pointed me in the direction of where this rune wanted me to consider: a difficult place, a hard place to process, the loss of my primal desires, reconsidering what I want and need. Lady Morgana commented a few days ago that sometimes the best thing you can do is nothing, and that to this week I have been holding, not to be driven and overridden by recklessness with my primal desires, and just understanding that I need to get back to myself. Then saw an article tied in with the Morrigan on personal sovereignty, and the following quotes I thought were quite poignant. Who will you fight for if not yourself? Who will right the wrongs of the world if the world is filled with people who have given away all their power? Pulling tarot cards for further clarification, there was a strong emphasis on justice, admit the truth and acknowledge the truth. Then I saw the following quote, it came up quite a lot this week: overthinking can ruin you, ruins the situation, twists things around, makes you worry and makes everything worse than it is. So there's sort of that balance there. There's, you have to understand things from a logical, intellectual point of view, but you can't allow those things to come into worries to override you. This week, there's been a lot of zebra agate around. I was very, very drawn to zebra agate. I really wanted the pendulum, and I felt like I absolutely had to have one. I'm going to read you the associations that I wrote down. Healing for colon, kidneys, liver, skin, spleen, stomach, and given I'm recovering from IBS this week, that makes sense to me. Good for general protection and prevent you from absorbing anybody else's negativity, stable and grounding, brings hidden information to light, protects the aura, helps you enjoy your body, assists in the development of precision of examination of self, relevant to one's well-being, perceptiveness to situation to awaken one's talents, inspirations, and connectedness to spirit. Now you can't actually see. I'll move my little divination candle over slightly. The first one I ordered broke clean in half, and literally I put it on the desk, not on there, and you can see, I think you can see, clean in half. There must have been a fracture down the thing, and this worried me very much at first. Now the people I ordered from were actually really good about it, and they sent me another one. So this is the one that arrived today. This is actually more balanced in the dark and light aspects of it than this one, which I was intrigued to see, like that perhaps this one wasn't balanced enough for me and broke as a result. Perhaps this was an indicator of the brokenness of my primal behaviours and needs because of the situations I have been through, and it was just a reminder that you can go out and fix, go out and sort it, go out and get another one. There have also been a lot of ravens and crows around. I mean, literally, I came home yesterday and we went past the fields, and there were 3 or 4 fields full of them. And I mean, hundreds of them. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I couldn't believe how many. And I quite frequently look for the water trough in one of the fields because the ravens quite frequently sit there. And there were tons of them all along the... I mean, loads. Hundreds of them. And every single morning this week I've heard a crow. Every single morning this week when I've been sat by myself, first thing, I have heard a crow calling, otherworld, death, etc. And in the picture there's also, if I slightly, yeah, you can see the gifts from Stephanie here and the Nightingale totem set. So I'm going to talk about them because I haven't actually noted that in the book. I'll note that before I move on to next week's Rune. I also received gifts from Stephanie yesterday, and it helped me feel connected to the world outside myself. It helped me feel loved. It helped me feel a connection, and it was a very feminine connection, and it was definitely a goddess inspired connection. Like, you're feeling all these things and you're going through all of these things and you're processing all of these things, but there are still people in the world that love you. There are still people in the world that are going to be good to you, and I love you. And there was that goddess energy love that came through from Stephanie's present that she sent yesterday, and it whelmed me up with tears. It's whelming me up with tears now. And I also created the hummingbird totem set this week, and like on the counterbalance side to how difficult this week has been, whilst I've been processing and not actually doing too much, I have been engaging in my creativity this week in a number of ways. Some of it has been very sort of basic, boring stuff, like making sure I get the right equipment to make what I want, to have the right stuff in stock, waiting for deliveries of things, so I have things that I can then create, like wax and wicks and bottles and stuff like that. So there was that sort of, you need those things to create, so that's into the rune still. And then the creation side of it is just allowing myself to still express myself through this rune without obviously misplacing my need to create. I think what it has been this week is I've sometimes found it quite difficult to create this week, but once I connected to my energies again, I created the hummingbird totem. Ow! I poked myself with my nail, sorry. I created the hummingbird totem set, which is one of the most beautiful sets, one of the most incredibly physically beautiful sets I have created so far, and it was beautiful in a way that it was like, if you connect to yourself and get back to yourself, you can be beautiful, you can make beautiful things. There's been a craftsmanship line running through this week as well, like, you know, my primal needs and connections to the goddess, so my higher sense of self connecting to the goddess, and then creating things through my hands, which is quite a primal thing to do. You know, when you're crafting with your hands, you're sort of tapping into like a whole bunch of human history, if you think about it. Like, people who used to create things with their hands all the time, you know, craftsmanship, right back to primal man, when they used to create weapons out of rocks and things, and jewelry out of teeth and things, but they were still doing it, they were still creating. So there's been that side of this week as well, and then there's been the whole overcoming traumatic sexual pasts, basically, the trauma of everything. So I don't really want to go too much into detail about that, because I honestly feel the need to. It's the need to, because I know why that message is coming through, and it's not obviously something you want to be shouting out the top of your lungs to the world. I don't feel any shame about talking about it, and that is why I have spoken about it. But to obviously keep dredging it up, keep bringing it into the forefront, like making myself out to be a victim, is something I despise and I will not do. And I'm not going to keep throwing it out there into the public realm and being like, pity me, because I see people doing that all the time and I hate it. It rubs against my soul, because I don't need pity. I don't want pity, and I don't need it. I'm working through my own issues, I'm healing my own wounds, I'm healing my own way, I'm interacting with people who are helping me heal, and I don't need to be, you know, shoving that down everyone's throat on a constant basis, like, look at me, what I survived. But this rune has very much been about those two things, like my healing myself, healing my primal needs and desires because of my abusive past. So I will say that, and I will illuminate that, and I will vlog it, but I am not going to keep going on about it at any length now. So that's it for this week's rune. I realise it wasn't quite as journalistic as usual, but it has been one of those very emotional things this week. So I'm sorry if it was a bit depressing. Many blessings.